why people's opinions matter to you, and why that's ruining your life. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth most people never say out loud. You don't care about people's opinions because you're kind. You care because you're afraid. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of being rejected. Afraid that if you stop adjusting yourself to fit other people's expectations, you'll discover there was never a solid you underneath in the first place. That fear runs deeper than you think. It quietly shapes your decisions, your work, your ambition, even your silence. And the most dangerous part? It feels normal. You call it being considerate. You call it reading the room. You call it being realistic. But philosophy has a harsher name for it: self-betrayal. The need for validation is not innocent. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Read that again, slowly. The tribe doesn't need to put chains on you. It just needs your agreement. From childhood, you were trained to associate approval with safety. Smile equals praise. Obey equals acceptance. Stand out equals risk. So you learned a dangerous equation early on. My value equals how I am perceived. That equation never leaves you. It just grows more sophisticated. As an adult, you don't beg for approval openly. You curate. You hesitate. You dilute your thoughts. You wait for signals before you speak. You don't ask, "Is this true?" You ask, "Will this be accepted?" And every time you choose acceptance over truth, something in you weakens. Arthur Schopenhauer warned, "Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world." But here's the modern twist. You've outsourced your field of vision to other people. You don't move until you feel socially permitted. You don't create until you feel validated. You don't commit until someone else mirrors belief back to you. That's not humility. That's intellectual dependency. You end up living in reaction mode, constantly adjusting your inner compass based on external noise. And the noise never stops. Friends, family, comment sections, metrics, likes, views, silence. Especially silence. Silence is the opinion you fear the most. Here's the pattern most people are trapped in. You know what matters. You know what you should be doing. You even know what kind of person you could become. But you don't act. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack discipline, but because action would mean standing alone before consensus forms. And that is terrifying. Søren Kierkegaard called this the dizziness of freedom. Because once you act without validation, you are fully responsible. No one to blame, no one to hide behind. So instead, you wait. You wait until the idea feels safe, someone else does it first, you receive encouragement, the risk disappears. But by then, the moment is dead. And so is your edge. The crowd rewards mediocrity, not greatness. Let's be blunt. The crowd does not reward originality at birth. It rewards familiarity. Every philosopher who mattered was first called arrogant, delusional, dangerous, insane. Nietzsche died largely ignored. Van Gogh sold almost nothing. Kafka asked his work to be burned. Spinoza was excommunicated. If they had waited for approval, you wouldn't know their names. Carl Jung nailed this dynamic. The individual who wishes to remain individual must learn to be alone. Not lonely, alone. Alone with doubt, alone with uncertainty, alone with the possibility of being wrong publicly. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they cannot tolerate the emotional cost of independence. Why other people's opinions feel so real? Here's the psychological trick your mind plays on you. Opinions feel like facts when they threaten belonging. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between social rejection and physical danger. To your brain, both signal risk of extinction. So when you imagine people judging you, your body reacts as if you're under attack. Heart rate up, muscles tense, thoughts narrow. This is why logic alone doesn't free you. You can understand that opinions don't matter and still be controlled by them. Epictetus, the Stoic, put it cleanly. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Your problem isn't other people's opinions, it's the authority you grant them. the cost you're paying, even if you don't see it yet. Every time you seek validation before acting, you pay a price. You delay momentum, you weaken self-trust, you train yourself to need permission. Over time, this compounds. You stop believing your own judgment. You hesitate even when alone. You second-guess decisions no one else will ever see. Eventually, you don't need critics anymore. You've internalized them. That's the final stage of the prison. Michel Foucault described this perfectly with the idea of the panopticon, a prison where inmates behave because they might be watched. No guard required, just the possibility of opinion. The hard question most people avoid. Ask yourself this, honestly. If no one could see your choices, if no one could judge the outcome, if no one would ever know, who would you become? Not who sounds impressive, not who feels acceptable. Who actually emerges when validation is removed? That question scares people more than failure, because the answer forces responsibility. And responsibility means you can no longer blame your environment, your past, other people's expectations. Jean-Paul Sartre called this the burden of freedom. Most people would rather be imprisoned by opinions than free and accountable.